So anyways, hey, what's up, guys? It's Ben. Today I'm coming at you with another video, and this time I'm going to be talking about the first word. So the first word is a book. The subtitle is To Search for the Origins of Language. Anyways, it's by Kenneally, and this book is about, okay, how did language come to be? And it's been very interesting so far. I've only read the first part, but I wanted to talk about the different camps that were set up. That started with the debate, I think right around the 60s into the 70s is when it really kicked off. And actually, it was basically talking about the topic of the evolution into, like, language and the origin was kind of banned, in a sense, up until Noam Chomsky broke it open. Anyways, so, and then other people challenged it, but Noam went after it. Anyways, so here we go, right? So I'm going to start talking about the different camps that have started, that have formed, and the whole 9 yards. Alright. Chomsky started off, he wrote a book, but a big thing that propelled him into the stratosphere is he reviewed something of B.F. Skinner's, who was a psychologist. He was a well-known one. Anyway, so Chomsky reviewed that, and he went after some of the notions, and he says that language is too complicated to not be innate. Stimuli versus response, stimuli response versus complexity is describing something. Right? So he talked about, okay, so if we identify something like, when you test it out on rats, what they'll do is you can teach certain animals how to do things, and they have an automatic response. Like, right, you're able to train the dog sit to snap your fingers, they sit, right? Well, with humanity, like if you show them, they'll have a certain response to something else. And they talk about rats. But with humans, let's say you look at a painting, right? You won't necessarily have a certain stimuli response, right? You can describe it in a whole bunch of different ways. So he proposes that because children they're able to pick it up so quickly, it must be something innate inside their brain that is not in other animals, because other animals don't do this. Right? And that was his proposition, is that because other animals don't do this, and because of the fact that it has to be innate in humans and not be an evolutionary trait, because that it's just too complicated a process to be able to learn all the different words and how to use them in such a short period of time, that there has to be something innate inside people's brains that other animals do not have. Otherwise, they would do it. And so that was Chomsky's main point. And so then we're going to move for 1 second. I'm going to skip somebody, and I'm going to show her at the end, because she's not exactly in this debate. I mean, she is, but she's not directly. So then we move on to the second group, right? So you see it right here. Paul Bloom and Steven Pinker. Anyways, so they start to kind of push into evolution. Right, and so what they say, and they believe that Chomsky's worldview actually, I think, can kind of work with theirs, but evolution, right, so they use the example of the eyeball. They say that the eyeball evolved. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for the eyeball to be able to evolve, because in order for parts of an eyeball to exist, other parts have to exist in order to keep it stable, but you can't have one without the other, and so it's just this, what is it, a catch-22, it's like this, it's a paradox, so it doesn't work. But they say that we're out of necessity, or we're out of the ability that it can. It's just overuse, fine-tuning, honing it in from an evolutionary perspective at the time. It was able to create into the eyeball, and that's the same as language. It's just honed until it was able to. And that's how humans have been able to talk and communicate and have language in the way that we do. And they debated Stephen Jay Gould, who was more of a Chomsky proponent, and Chomsky was actually supposed to be at this debate, but he wasn't because he had some sort of, I think, a health issue. But Stephen J. Gould used the example of the spandrel, which is an accidental byproduct of evolution. So, it didn't come about because of evolution. The spandrel just, well, it comes about technically because, but it doesn't, it wasn't specifically evolved into it, right? It just kind of happened by accident, is more or less where that comes from. So that's the second point. Then you have the third guy who says that it's evolution, Lieberman, and then we'll get to Savage-Rumbaugh. Lieberman, who is a big critic of Chomsky's, and they had a falling out, right? They didn't speak for 18 years or whatever. They had a major issue with each other over these concepts because Lieberman became a very big proponent for evolutionary explanations to language. And so he started doing all kinds of different research. One of his biggest things was, well, he looked into Parkinson's patients, and then he studied people that were going up to Mount Everest, because Mount Everest had, so in Parkinson's, it says, like the basal ganglia has to do with part of syntax, being able to put together certain parts of sentences. Yeah, so they have more trouble with regular verbs, so it's being able to do certain sequences of things, right? And so that's something that's connected with words and regular verbs in particular. And so that's the thing that he studies, and he actually, Mount Everest, because what happens is when you have a deprivation of oxygen, what happens is it mimics the symptoms. It temporarily damages the basal ganglia. And so you're able to replicate that through experimentation with different sentences and counting and sequencing and stuff like that. And actually a major example of his, unfortunately, was somebody that he had going up to Mount Everest. And the issue was that the person became kind of irritable about it after they had gotten worse, and then they took off on their own, and unfortunately they died. And it seemed to be in large part because they couldn't do, in order to harness themselves in at a certain spot, they were not able to do so because they did not have the functioning in the basal ganglia because of the oxygen deprivation. And his point is also the rats, birds, and chimpanzees, right? Rats, birds, and chimpanzees all have the basal ganglia. And so he says that it's just right there. And so then the basal ganglia is a part of that language and syntax that then evolved, right? And so then that transfers over, and language isn't necessarily going to be innate. And here's actually the biggest piece of evidence is a woman by the name of Savage-Rumbaugh, which I'm going to show.
So anyways, this is Sue Savage-Rumbaugh. She worked with chimps. Babonos was her main one. She had a particular motto was one that she worked with, but Kanzi was the big one. She had greater success when she indirectly taught, right? So she was working with Matata. She was working with Matata, which is actually interesting enough. I think it's on my shirt. Anyways, so Matata and Kanzi then was paying attention and actually picked up on it quicker by indirectly, right? Indirectly, Kanzi was able to learn. And so Kanzi is Sue Savage-Rumbaugh's biggest example of evolution. Not that I think she got huge into the debate between these men, but she did have an effect, because this is an example. It's like bobbins are not humans, and sure, we seem to be primate evolved, but at the same time they're not humans, and so that means that maybe language isn't entirely just human, because it seems like that Kanzi was able to figure it out. Now, they did try to replicate this in another experiment that was stated in this book, and it did not go well, and it kind of crapped on funding. If I can find a little snippet on that, then I'll put it in. But it showed that I'm not sure what kind of ape it was, but the ape was response driven versus actually understanding what was going on, right? It was like what I was talking about with the rats or the dogs, or like it was a response. And so, it's not entirely certain who is correct, but this is just, I don't know, I just found this very interesting, and I wanted to figure out, okay, where does it come from? Honestly, I want to figure out like what the first actual words, or first look into what the first actual language system that we know of is. And so maybe I'll do that on a different video. But anyways, I think I'm going to cut it here. Did I cut? Yes, I did. Great. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, that article was by Harper's. Anyways, so I am going to
cut it here. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of all the. Please. Hey, okay. So that's going to be it. So see you guys. Please like, comment what you thought of this video, comment what you thought of everything I was talking about, and subscribe. I'll see you all later.